Howdy folks, my name is Richie, aka Bog Otter. Ow, I bit my tongue! Oh. 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 That sucks. Howdy folks, and welcome back to another episode of Tyria Talk. My name is Richard Procopio, aka Bog Otter, and this show is all about Guild Wars 2. Today is episode number 75, and today we're going to be talking about the Chronomancer. So if you haven't heard the news, the Chronomancer is the first elite specialization that ArenaNet has announced for Guild Wars 2 Heart of Thorns expansion. It is the elite specialization for the Mesmer profession, and so as part of the expansion, you will be able to take your Mesmer and you will be able to transform them into a Chronomancer and get access to new skills, a new weapon type, and new kinds of mechanics. Or you can kind of spec your Mesmer using the old core specializations and not actually become a Chronomancer. But this episode is talking about Chronomancers, and we're going to unpack the information that ArenaNet put out in a couple of different blog posts, and there's some screenshots and a little bit of a trailer that they put out as well. So I'm going to just talk about what we learned today, and then I'm going to give you some of my opinions on the Chronomancer in general. So should we do that? Yeah, we should probably do that starting now. So the community has speculated for a while now that the Mesmer specialization was going to be the Chronomancer. There seemed to be a part of some of the trailers that were already released for the expansion. There seemed to be some sort of character using a shield and doing some sort of time warp type ability, and that led people to kind of speculate that it was a Chronomancer because Chronomancer was one of the classes that was announced for the now defunct Guild Wars 1 campaign, Utopia. So there was a campaign that they did that they were thinking of doing called Utopia. We had some information about it, and that was canceled, and we eventually got the expansion Eye of the North, and then it was revealed that Guild Wars 2 was in development. So Chronomancer was something that was announced. Some of the themes of the class, and being able to affect time, hence being a Chronomancer, that was part of it, but it was going to be a completely separate class than the actual Mesmer was. So there would be two kind of mage-type classes in the game that actually had stuff that was a little bit, it wasn't your typical fireball-throwing, lightning-bolting type mage. So those would kind of overlap a little bit. So it just made sense when they were coming up with the elite specializations for the current professions in the game to actually add a new flavor of Mesmer, and this flavor of Mesmer, deals with all kinds of time stop things. So one of the things that we learned was, first of all, in case you didn't know, the elite specializations are for level 80 characters only. There was some speculation earlier that maybe some of this stuff could be level up material, but now it's confirmed the elite specialization. So the Druid for the Ranger and the Chronomancer for the Mesmer, these are the two that we know about. Those are going to be level 80 only. The elite specialization traits and stuff like that, it's going to be only for level 80 characters. Wow, it took me a long time to just say that. Sorry about that. Let's go back in time and do it again. Through the powers of editing! I will leave it in. The new weapon for the Mesmer is the shield, and it's going to be an offhand only. And one of the things that people have talked about is, okay, some of the new professions or the new specializations are going to get a whole new weapon like a staff, and that's going to come with 5 new skills. But the Mesmer is only going to get a shield, which means 2 offhand skills that they're going to be able to get. But they've already announced, and you'll see as we talk through this, there's going to be new abilities going in that are going to be able to impact the Mesmer. There's going to be a new F5 ability, some new wells that you could put on the ground. It's kind of like a Necromancer could put wells on the ground, and so there's a whole bunch of new things changing. So you can't just get focused on the fact that there's, oh my god, there's only 2 new weapon skills for the Mesmer. There's going to be a whole new playstyle unlocked as a result of these specializations. So the shield mechanics are going to be pretty cool. We're going to go over all the abilities that they've announced in a minute, but they definitely are awesome looking. One of the unique things of the Chronomancer is a new effect called Alacrity. So Chronomancers are going to have, they're going to be the only specialization that can have access to giving Alacrity out. And you can give Alacrity to your allies as well as have some effects to yourself. But Alacrity is the opposite of Chill. So where Chill makes your skills recharge slower, alacrity actually makes them recharge quicker. So some of the cooldowns to the Chronomancer's abilities are kind of lengthy, especially they mentioned the wells that you could put down have these huge effects, but they have lengthy cooldowns. But being able to give yourself alacrity helps you to mitigate that downside, and to effectively play a Chronomancer, you're going to want to continue to give yourself alacrity so that your stuff comes off cooldown quicker. It's a really interesting mechanic. I do have some opinions on the fact that they're giving it only to Chronomancers that I'll get to later on in the video, but it is a cool feature for the game. So let's take a look at some of the screenshots and the in-game video that they did for some of the Chronomancer skills, and let's cover those. Now, on the point of alacrity, they mentioned specifically that there's going to be a minor trait that allows Chronomancers to be able to give alacrity to themselves every time an illusion shatters. So if you're running a build that focuses on that, you want to be able to shatter your illusions at a regular interval to greatly enhance your effectiveness. You also will have Phantasm builds out there that allows you to give alacrity to the illusions so that they can actually fire off their abilities quicker. Now, getting back to the shield for a second, one of the skills on the shield that they announced is called Tides of Time, and I'm going to read what they wrote here because it's kind of a complicated spell. So, Tides of Time launches a wall of compressed temporal energy from the Chronomancer shield that travels forward a moderate distance, absorbing all projectiles that are fired into it. If the wall passes through an enemy, that enemy becomes frozen in time and stunned for a short duration, and allies touched by the wall are granted a short burst of quickness. When the wall reaches its maximum distance, it turns around, rewinds itself back toward the Chronomancer, applying all of the effects on its targets a second time. An adept Chronomancer can even reposition while the wave is moving to change the returning trajectory of the wall. Very cool looking skill. You can see it in the trailer here. I've probably played it a few times while explaining that. It's complicated. It does a lot of things. It's got a stun in there. It can quickness your allies. It stops projectiles. And I love the fact that you can reposition it on the, on the boomerang of the shield. I think the last part about it that I forgot to mention before is if you're able to pass through the wall on its return trip, it refunds a portion of the recharge time so you can use it again sooner. So yeah, it's a crazy ability that does a bunch of different things on it. I think people are going to like that a lot. I mentioned earlier that the Chronomancers have access to wells. So wells are big, like AoE circles that you put on the board on the ground, and it has some sort of effect for anybody that's standing in it. The wells that the Chronomancer can put down will have a clock face on them, and they will actually pulse, and they'll actually pulse like a ticking clock, and you can see the hands of the clock on the wells. So they said observant players will be able to watch the hands of the clock to tell when it's going to trigger. An example of one of the wells is the wells of precognition, and that creates a well that alters the future of allies in the area, causing their attacks to become unblockable. And when this well ends, affected allies can read the future for a short duration and evade all incoming attacks. Alright, so they said using this well tactically can help a team burst through a heavy defense, heavy foes, while protecting allies from counterattacks. So it's a cool example. So during the duration of the spell, your allies are unblockable, and then when the big effect goes off, when the clock ticks, then for a short time, all of your allies avoid all attacks. That seems to be pretty awesome. I like the fact that it gives there's a lot of flavor to it as well. Like, it's a well of precognition. So what kinds of things would help your allies attack if they knew what was coming? Well, okay, they can make it so that it's really difficult for their attacks to be blocked and make it really hard for people to hit them at the same time. There's a new mechanic to the F5 slot. I mentioned this earlier, okay? So F5 is going to be a skill called Continuum Split, and after you hit it, the F5 will become Continuum Shift, which you can kind of use to end the effect. There's also a duration, so it will automatically end at a certain point, but this spell, it gets kind of wacky. So when the Chronomancer activates Continuum Split, they sacrifice all their illusions to split themselves off from the normal flow of time for a duration that scales with the number of illusions shattered. Okay, so the more illusions you have out, the more time you get to walk in this alternate reality. When the duration is over, or when the Mesmer activates the follow-up skill Continuum Shift, they revert back to the location where the first skill was activated. Alright, so shifting back to the original timeline reverts the Chronomancer's health, endurance, and all cooldowns, including the elite skill, back to the state where they were when the shatter was first activated. So this skill essentially gives the Chronomancer a reset button and allows for tricks such as casting any skill twice, avoiding a killing blow, or simply tactically repositioning yourself. Alright, so Tides of Time, they mentioned earlier in the article, so you can use Continuum Split, will allow you to catch 2 returning time waves, doubling the effectiveness of the recharge bonus and gaining twice the benefits. So it really sounds like Mesmers are going to have a lot of crazy, confusing things to do as a Chronomancer, which they are already a pretty complicated class. Yeah, I just, the players that really know how to make these things happen, it's gonna be kind of nuts. We also know the names of some of the skills that they have based on some of the screenshots that ArenaNet sent out. One of them is called Echo of Memory. One of them is called Glamour. There's Gravity Well, which is an elite skill, and which is really hilarious to a lot of my guildmates because they call me Gravity Well while we're doing guild missions, because every time I seem to fall, everybody else seems to fall with me. Tides of Time, we mentioned. There's a Well of Action, Well of Precognition, which we've talked about, and then a Well of Recall are the skills that are attached to these screenshots that they sent out. So let me give you some of my thoughts about the Chronomancer in general. Flavor-wise, I absolutely love this. And probably if you look back on my channel a couple of years ago when I first talked about the Mesmer, I love the idea of the Mesmer being an atypical spellcaster. I mean, of course, you've seen illusionists and those type of, that archetype has been around since, Dungeons and Dragons. But the fact that, here's an MMO that makes this, it's kind of like a central profession in it kind of helps define Guild Wars 2 as having Mesmer, and there's just nothing really like it out there. And the fact that now you can specialize this into a Chronomancer, I think that really, I don't know, I love the whole idea and the concept of it. So you've got this illusion type confusing type illusionist, and now you're going to add this time aspect to it. They can rewind things, get cooldowns, they can play with their cooldown reduction, all of that type of stuff. I love the whole kit, the whole flavor of it. I do think that this class is going to have an even higher skill ceiling than it was before, and I think that it could be probably not the best class to choose if you're a new player to the game. I think it's certainly in the hands of somebody who is very deft and very artful and dexterous. They will be able to really master this class and do some crazy, insane combinations with it. I like the fact that the shield is the new weapon for the Chronomancer. I already love the fact that the Mesmer, again, was atypical in that, yeah, here's this spellcaster in, light armor wielding a greatsword or shooting a pistol, and now you're gonna have a shield on top of it. They're cool weapon sets for a caster. It's like I said, it's not your typical stuff. I'm a little bit nervous about the alacrity thing. They mentioned that alacrity, like I said earlier, was only going to be usable by Chronomancers. So it depends on how necessary of a buff that is to be able to give to your allies, because reducing the cooldowns on all skills for you and your allies, that can be huge. How much of that is going to be a factor? Is it going to be a case where they've talked about going to have more challenging content, more challenging group content going in for the expansion? Is it going to be the kind of thing where you really need to have a Chronomancer with you, or it's really beneficial to have a Chronomancer with you, so because that's the only way you can get the alacrity buff? Things like this make me a little nervous. I think back to World of Warcraft, and there were certain periods of time during the World of Warcraft years where there were certain classes or specs that were just indispensable. It was like, okay, we need to have heroism for this encounter, or we need to have some other big powerful cooldown or some buff that some class could only bring. So I just hope that doesn't become the case with this. So whenever you make an ability or an effect exclusive to just one slice of a population like that, it makes me a little bit nervous. So hopefully they mitigate that, or it's a nice to have, but something that just absolutely isn't required. We're going to learn more about the Chronomancer and see it in action during the Points of Interest live stream show on Friday, May 1st at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to actually be doing the pre-show to that an hour before, so I'm going to be starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be streaming, and I'll probably be running around the server wastes with a group of people and trying to pick up portals to get the the beta access. Yeah, so stay tuned to learn more about the Chronomancer. Let me know what you think. Was this a surprise to you? Is this something you're excited about? What do you like about this announcement? What do you not like about this announcement? What profession do you want to see next? Answer every single one of those questions in the comments field below, and hit that like button or that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel and all of that jazz. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.